You remember versions of yourself that used to feel things more intensely, versions of you that laughed without forcing it, versions of you that believed life was eventually going to become something meaningful. And now you mostly just feel numb, mixed with exhausted, like your soul has been carrying too much weight for too many years without rest. People think pain always arrives as some dramatic tragedy, but honestly, the worst pain is usually slow. Slow disappointment, slow loneliness, and slow realization. The realization that nobody is coming to save you. That one destroys people quietly. Because as kids, most of us grew up believing life eventually makes sense. That one day the loneliness fades, the confusion settles, and you finally feel like you belong somewhere. But then adulthood comes and you realize some people spend their entire lives emotionally starving while pretending they're okay. The realization is enough to hollow somebody out, especially when you've spent years trying to improve yourself, trying to stay hopeful, trying not to become bitter, trying to believe the pain had a purpose. But eventually, you reach a point where your mind starts asking questions you can't answer anymore. What if nothing changes? What if this is the best life ever gets for me? What if I'm just one of those people who exist to watch everybody else be happy? And those thoughts don't leave once they enter your head. They sit there during quiet moments, during car rides, during showers, during sleepless nights at 3 a.m. when the world is silent enough for your real thoughts to finally speak. And your real thoughts are brutal, because deep down, you start mourning yourself while you're still alive. You mourn that the motivation version of you, the hopeful version, the version that thought love was eventually coming, the version that thought life would feel meaningful by now. That person slowly faded over time, not because they wanted to die, because disappointment slowly suffocated them. And nobody notices when a person dies emotionally. People only notice once it affects them. So you continue functioning. You show up, you reply, you smile when expected, but internally, you feel disconnected from everything. Like there's glass separating you from the rest of the world. You can see happiness, see connection, see people building lives, falling in love, fighting purpose, but you can't feel any of it for yourself. You just watch it happen from a distance, wondering why existing feels so much easier for everyone else. And eventually the loneliness becomes physical. That's the scary part. It stops being emotional and starts living in your body. Heavy chest, constant exhaustion, random waves of sadness that hit for no reason. That empty feeling in your stomach when you realize another day passed and nothing changed. Something you sit alone so long that silence itself starts hurting. You start craving things so basic it almost feels pathetic. A real conversation, someone checking on you first, someone noticing your absence, someone genuinely waiting and watching you around, not needing something from you, not using you as a temporary comfort, actually wanting you. Do you know how painful it is to go years without feeling genuinely chosen? People underestimate that kind of loneliness. It changes the way you see yourself. At first you think, I just haven't found my people yet. Then eventually it becomes, maybe there's a reason nobody stays. That thought poisons everything. Because once somebody starts believing, they're fundamentally hard to love. Every interaction becomes proof. Every unanswered text feels personal. Every rejection feels permanent. And every silence feels confirming. And the worst part is how convincing your own mind becomes. Your brain starts collecting evidence against your worth. You're forgettable. You're behind in life. You wasted your best years. Nobody actually needs you. Meanwhile, you're still expected to function normally. Still expected to work, talk, laugh, and most of all, keep going. That's what's so cruel about life sometimes. The world doesn't stop because you're breaking internally. Bills still exist, time still moves, people still expect things from you, even when you feel emotionally dead inside. And honestly, sometimes you become jealous of people who still feel excited about life. Not because you hate them, because you miss knowing what that feels like. You miss waking up with energy instead of dread. You miss believing your future held something meaningful. Now the future just feels like more time, more days to survive, more nights to overthink, and more pretending, and more waiting for a feeling that never fully arrives. And nobody prepares you for how dangerous hopelessness becomes when it lasts too long. Because eventually you stop imagining better days entirely. You stop dreaming, stop expecting, stop emotionally investing in anything because disappointment became too familiar. You tell yourself, don't get your hopes up about everything: love, friendships, your future, yourself. That sentence slowly drains color out of your life. And what really hurts is realizing how many people around you probably feel the exact same emptiness but never say it out loud. There are people walking around carrying unbearable sadness behind completely normal faces. People who smile in public then fall apart alone at night, just like me and you. People who secretly wish someone would ask them if they're really okay and actually wait for the honest answer. But most people don't, because everyone is distracted trying to survive their own pain. So we all slowly bleed internally beside each other without noticing. And maybe that's the most depressing thing about being human. How lonely all of us really are underneath everything. How badly we all want connection while pretending we don't need anybody. How many people go years without hearing the words they desperately needed to hear. I'm glad you're here. You matter to me. I see how hard you're trying. You don't have to carry everything alone. Some people have gone their whole lives waiting to hear those words sincerely, and after enough years, they stop wanting it altogether. That's when the emptiness becomes dangerous, because sadness still carries hope inside it, but numbness is what happens when hope finally gets too tired to continue. And maybe that's when the deepest pain lives, not in crying, not in heartbreak, but in becoming so emotionally exhausted that you no longer know how to imagine a life that feels worth staying awake for. Yet somehow, you still wake up every single morning, even with the weight, even with the emptiness, even with the terrifying thought that maybe nothing changes. You still wake up. And honestly, maybe that's the rarest kind of strength there is. A broken person continuing to exist when life stopped feeling gentle a long time ago. After a while, you stop feeling like a person, start feeling like a ghost watching everyone else live the life you wanted. That's the part nobody prepares you for. How loneliness slowly erases you, not all at once, little by little. You stop texting first because you get tired of feeling like a burden. You stop talking about your feelings because nobody really knows what to say anymore. You stop sharing your dreams because deep down you don't believe they'll happen anyway. Eventually, you become quieter, not because you have nothing to say, but because you realize nobody has really... Damn it, I messed that up. And the silence changes you. You start spending entire nights inside your own head, replaying every mistake you've ever made, every awkward moment, every rejection, every time someone slowly drifted away from you like staying was too difficult. And your mind becomes cruel. It starts rewriting your entire existence as proof that you were never enough, not attracted enough, not important enough, not lovable enough. You begin wondering if people can sense something broken inside you the moment they meet you. Because no matter how hard you try to be good to people, somehow you still end up alone at the end of the day. That kind of pain rots a person from the inside, especially when you see someone else moving forward, people falling in love, getting married, building families, and making memories. And you're still sitting in the same room every night trying to survive your own thoughts. There's something humiliating about realizing your entire life has become waiting. Wanting for happiness, waiting to matter to someone, and waiting for your life to finally begin. But it never really does. Days become weeks become years, and suddenly you look in the mirror and realize time has taken pieces of you the whole time. Your energy, your hope, your softness, gone slowly. You become exhausted in ways sleep can't fix, because this isn't physical exhaustion anymore. It's the exhaustion of carrying a life that never became what you hoped it would. You know what really hurts, watching yourself become older and colder, not mean, just emotionally distant. Because at some point your heart realizes hoping hurts more than expecting nothing. So you stop getting excited, stop imagining futures, stop believing people when they say they care. You learn how temporary everyone is. People always leave eventually, some slowly, some suddenly, but they always leave. And every goodbye adds another layer of numbness until eventually you don't even recognize the person you become trying to survive all this pain. The worst nights are the ones when you realize nobody actually knows how bad it's gone inside your head. Everyone sees the functioning version of you. Nobody sees the night where you stare at your ceiling for hours feeling completely detached from your own existence. Nobody sees the moments where you sit in silence wondering if your absences would even change anything. Nobody sees how badly you want someone to notice you're struggling without having to beg for it. Because honestly, you're tired of begging, tired of reaching out first, tired of trying harder, tired of carrying conversations, relationships, hope. You're tired of feeling emotionally disposable, and eventually life starts feeling less like living and more like enduring. You wake up because you have to, work because you have to, smile because it makes other people comfortable. But internally, there's this constant emptiness eating through you every single day, like your soul is collapsing inward silently. And maybe the saddest part is realizing how easy it would be for the world to keep moving without you. That thought sits heavy in lonely people's mind, because when you spend years feeling unseen, forgotten, replaceable, eventually you start believing your existence was never that important to begin with. You begin feeling like background noise in everybody's life, present but never significant, needed but never chosen, and no matter how much pain you carry, morning still comes. That's what feels so cruel. The world keeps asking things from you even when you're emotionally drowning. Life doesn't pause because your heart is exhausted. Life and time just keeps moving forward mercilessly, while you try to drag yourself behind it, and every year that passes starts feeling heavier than the last. Because deep down, you know you're losing something you can never get back. Time, youth, possibility. The belief that maybe life would eventually become beautiful. Because you sit alone and realize you don't even recognize your own future anymore. You can't picture happiness sincerely. Every future version of yourself just looks tired, still alone, still pretending, and still carrying the emptiness nobody fully understands. The realization can break a person quietly, because humans need something to hold on to, a purpose, a connection, a reason to continue. But when life becomes years of emotional isolation, even hope starts feeling unrealistic. You start questioning whether some people are simply born to be forgotten, and maybe that thought hurts because part of you already believes it. You think about all the love you had inside you that never had anywhere to go. All the loyalty, all the care, all the nights you would have stayed up comforting someone you loved. And instead, all that softness stayed trapped inside a lonely person nobody fully saw. And that's tragic. A heart capable of so much love spending years with nobody to give it to. And eventually, the loneliness mutates into grief. Not grief for someone who died, grief for the life you thought you'd had by now. The version of you that believed things would eventually make sense. You mourn the person you were before disappointment hardened you, because silence becomes normal, before isolation became comforting, before you stopped expecting anyone to stay. And sometimes the pain becomes so deep you don't even cry anymore. You just stare into space feeling empty beyond words, like your emotions burned themselves out years ago. That kind of sadness is terrifying because it doesn't feel dramatic. It feels permanent, like your soul quietly gave up while your body kept going. And maybe the most depressing truth of all this is, some people really are fighting unbearable battles completely alone. Every day, without anyone noticing, without anyone saving them, without even knowing if things would ever truly get better. They just continue existing because they don't know what else to do. And maybe tonight, somewhere, there's another person sitting in darkness, feeling this exact same emptiness, wondering how much longer they can keep carrying a life that stopped feeling meaningful a long time ago. Wondering if anyone would ever understand how heavy their heart has become, wondering if someone or someday they'll finally feel wanted instead of tolerated. But for now, all they have is silence. And silence can become a very cruel place when a person has spent too many years alone inside it. Eventually, the silence becomes part of you, not around you, but inside you. It follows you everywhere like a second shadow, in crowded rooms, in car rides home, in the middle of conversations when you're smiling while feeling absolutely nothing underneath it. And one day you realize something terrifying. You can't remember the last time you genuinely felt alive. Not distracted, not entertained for a few minutes, but alive. Everything starts feeling temporary. Happiness lasts minutes, distractions last hours, but the emptiness, that stays, always, waiting for the second the noise to disappear. You become afraid of quiet because quiet forces honesty, and honesty sounds like this. You're still unhappy, you're still alone, nothing really changed. That truth eats us people slowly, especially the ones who spent years believing endurance would eventually be rewarded. Because nobody tells you there are people who try their hardest and still lose themselves anyway. People who gave life chance after chance after chance until eventually they ran out of emotional energy to keep believing. And maybe that's what hopelessness really is. Not dramatic crying, not screaming, just walking and waking up every day with less emotional strength than the day before. You start noticing how disconnected you become from everyone. Friends stop checking in because they assume you're okay. Family gets used to your silence. People move on with their lives while you remain emotionally stuck in the same dark place year after year. And after enough time, isolation stops feeling sad. It starts feeling normal. That's when things get dangerous. Because humans can adapt to almost everything, even emptiness. You adapt to not being loved, adapt to not being chosen, and adapt to carrying pain alone. Until eventually your loneliness becomes your personality, and nobody notices because from the outside you still look functional. That's the terrifying thing about depression. Some of the saddest people still show up every day, still laugh at jokes, still help others, still say I'm fine, while internally feeling like life has been draining the soul out of them for years. You know what really hurts? Realizing how replaceable you are. That if you disappeared for a while, most people would continue living normally after a short moment of surprise. The world keeps moving, it always does. And lonely people think about that more than they admit. Not because they were pity, because they want proof they mattered. Proof that existence changes something. But when your life becomes an endless cycle of being overlooked, forgotten, and emotionally disconnected, eventually you start struggling to believe your presence carries any real weight at all. And that thought is suffocating. You begin feeling like you were made to witness happiness instead of experiencing it. Like life placed you outside the warmth, looking in through a window you never reach. You watch other people build memories while your own days blur together into nothing. You wake up, you survive, you distract yourself, you overthink, and you repeat. Over and over until time itself starts feeling meaningless. And honestly, some nights the future feels less scary than the idea of living the exact same pain forever. That's what people don't understand. It's not always about wanting everything to end. Sometimes it's just being terrified nothing will ever truly begin. Terrified this emptiness is permanent. Terrified that years from now, you'll still be sitting alone wondering where your life went. There's a specific heartbreak that comes from realizing you spent most of your youth sad, while everyone else was making memories, falling in love, discovering themselves. You were just trying to survive your own mind. And survival steals years from people. You don't notice it happening at first, but one day you'll look back and realize how much of your life has spent merely enduring instead of living. That realization can crush somebody, especially when they already feel behind because of everyone else. You start mourning time itself, the birthdays that felt empty, the nights spent crying alone, the versions of yourself that slowly disappeared trying to carry too much pain. And eventually you become exhausted from pretending you still believe things will get better. Because hope is heavy when life keeps disappointing you. Every new day starts feeling less like an opportunity and more like another obligation. Another day to fake obeyness. Another day to drag yourself through hours you don't even want. Another night wanting and waiting for sleep because unconsciousness feels kinder than your own thoughts. And the scary thing is how invisible this kind of suffering is. People only notice the breakdowns. They don't notice the years leading up to them. The years of isolation, the years of feeling unwanted, the years of slowly losing emotional connection to your own existence. Pain, this deep, rarely arrives suddenly. It builds quietly inside people who kept swallowing their sadness because they didn't want to burden anyone else. Until eventually the sadness becomes who they are. And maybe the rawest truth is this. Some people are not living because they love life. They're living because they don't know how to stop surviving it. There are people carrying unbearable emptiness every single day while pretending they're functioning normally. People whose hearts have become graveyards for all of the love, hope, and versions of themselves that never got the chance to exist. And at night, when the world goes silent and distractions just appear, those people lie awake, feeling the full weight of their existence pressing down on them, thinking about how badly they wanted life to feel different by now, thinking about all the years that disappeared into sadness, thinking about how exhausting it is to keep going when your soul hasn't felt peace in a very long time. And maybe the cruelest part of all that is tomorrow morning, they'll still get up, still act normal, still carry the weight quietly, still continue through another day. Nobody realizes what was incredibly hard for them to survive. Because some of them, most broken people, become experts at looking okay, while internally, they've been slowly falling apart for years. And after enough years of falling apart, silently something inside you changes permanently. You stop seeing life as something beautiful. It starts become something you endure. Like bad weather that never clears. You start waking up already tired, already disappointed that morning came again. Not because you necessarily want to die, but because being alive stopped feeling comforting a long time ago. That's the kind of sadness people don't talk about enough. The sadness of having no energy left for your own existence. You brush your teeth, get dressed, answer people, do what you're supposed to do. But internally, every task feels pointless. Life, like you're maintaining a life you no longer feel connected to. And the terrifying thing is how normal this becomes after a while. You stop imagining happiness because your brain no longer believes it's realistic to you. You stop fantasizing about love because loneliness convinced you nobody stays. You stop opening up because every valuable part of you feels bruised from years of disappointment. So instead, you become emotionally quiet. A person full of unspoken things, unspoken fears, unspoken exhaustion, and unspoken grief. And nobody notices because you learned how to suffer politely. That's what breaks a lot of people. Not one catastrophic moment. But years of carrying unbearable thoughts alone because they don't want to inconvenience anyone else with their sadness. So they keep everything inside until their mind becomes a prison that they can't escape from. And late at night, when everyone else is asleep, the thoughts get louder. That's when the darkness feels more honest. You think about all the people you cared about more than they cared about you. All the times you were there for people who disappeared once they no longer needed you. All the love you gave that never came back the same way. And you begin realizing your entire life has felt emotionally one-sided. You were always the person giving more, caring more, trying harder, while secretly hoping somebody would finally do the same for you. But nobody ever really did. And eventually, that realization leaves a wound so deep it changes the way you love forever. Because after enough disappointment, your heart stops reaching naturally. Not because it wants to, because rejection exhausts it. You start expecting abandonment before people even leave. You assume silence means disinterest, distance means replacement, and kindness means temporary. That's what prolonged loneliness does to a human mind. It rewires it. You become suspicious of happiness because every good thing in your life eventually disappeared. So now even peace feels temporary. Even when something or someone is kind to you, part of your brain immediately whispers, they'll leave too. And honestly, sometimes the saddest part isn't even the loneliness anymore. It's realizing how badly you crave being understood. Not fixed, not pitied, understood. You want someone to look at you and recognize how exhausted you are without needing an explanation. You want someone to notice the heaviness in your silence, because carrying pain alone for years becomes unbearable in ways words can't fully describe. It starts feeling like you're emotionally rotting from the inside. You'll lose motivation slowly, lose excitement slowly, and lose pieces of yourself slowly. Until one day you sit there wondering when exactly you stopped feeling like a real person. And the answer is hard to find because there wasn't one moment. Just years of sadness stacking on top of each other until they become your personality. You became the quiet one, the distant one, the tired one, but nobody sees the grief underneath it all. Grief for all the life you wanted. Grief for the person you used to be. Grief for all the love you never received. Sometimes you remember younger versions of yourself and it hurts in a way that's hard to explain. Because the younger person genuinely believed life would eventually become beautiful. That they believed people stayed, believed love was real, believed hard times were temporary. And now you look at yourself and wonder, what happened to that hope? Where did it all go? At what point did survival replace living? At what point did you become someone who feels emotionally disconnected from almost everything? You know what's really painful. Realizing nobody came looking for you emotionally. You spent years drowning quietly that most people never even noticed the water. Because people are better at seeing loud suffering than silent suffering. And your pain became silent a long time ago. Now it just lives inside you quietly. A constant ache, a constant heaviness, like carrying invisible bricks in your chest at every walking moment. And the worst thing about invisible pain is that people expect you to function normally while carrying it. So you continue moving through life exhausted beyond words, while everyone assumes you're okay because you're still standing. But standing isn't the same as living. A lot of people are standing, very few are truly okay. Maybe tonight that reality feels unbearable because deep down, you know you've been surviving for so long that you forgot what peace even feels like. You forgot what it's like to wake up excited about being alive. Forgot what it's like to believe your future contains something warm. Now, the future just feels like more time to carry the same sadness. And time becomes terrifying when you're unhappy, because you start seeing it less as an opportunity and more as loss. Another year gone, another birthday feeling empty, and another season of your life spent emotionally alone. You start panicking quietly about how fast life moves, because what if this is it? What if these lonely nights eventually become your entire life? And what if one day you wake up and realize sadness consumed most of your existence? That fear crushes people internally, especially the ones who already feel like life passed them by. And maybe the deepest wound of all is realizing how badly you wanted to be loved while pretending you didn't need anyone. How many nights you spent secretly wishing somebody would text first. How many times you imagined being important to someone. How badly you wanted warmth in a life that constantly felt emotionally cold. But instead you learn how to live with emptiness, how to sleep beside silence, how to shallow pain quietly, how to continue existing even when your heart feels unbearable heavy. And maybe that's why some people become so detached, because after carrying sadness for too long, the mind eventually shuts parts of itself down just to survive. Not because the pain disappeared, because feeling it fully every day would destroy you, so you become numb. And numbness is a very lonely place to live, because you can't even properly explain to people how deeply broken you feel anymore. You just know something inside you hasn't felt a hole in a long time. And maybe the saddest thing of all is realizing you kept waiting for someone to notice the pain without ever saying it out loud. Because deep down, part of you wanted to believe that if someone truly loved you, they would see it. They'd hear it. They'd hear the exhaustion hidden inside your voice. They'd notice how quiet you became. They would recognize that your smile stopped reaching your eyes a long time ago. But nobody did, so you kept carrying it alone. year after year, and loneliness like that changes the way a person exists in the world. You stop feeling connected to time. Days blur together until entirely months disappear without a single meaningful memory attached to them. You wake up, look at your phone, scroll aimlessly, pretend to care things about you secretly feel nothing toward. Go back to sleep hoping tomorrow somehow feels lighter. But it never really does. That's what's terrifying. The consistency of the emptiness. You keep thinking eventually there'll be a turning point, some moment where life finally feels real again. Some person who finally stays, some reason that makes all the suffering feel worth surviving. But instead, it's just more waiting. More silence, more nights alone with your thoughts, more trying to distract yourself from the crushing feeling that your life is slipping through your fingers while nothing inside you changes. And the older you get, the scarier it becomes. Because sadness feels different when time starts moving faster. Birthdays stop feeling special, they start feeling threatening. Another year gone, another year unloved, another year spent carrying pain nobody fully understands. You start realizing how much of your life has already disappeared into sadness, and that realization is enough to break someone quietly, especially when you remember how hopeful you used to be. There was a version of you that genuinely believed life would become beautiful someday, a version of you that thought love was coming, thought friendship would last, thought growing older meant growing happier. That version of you would barely recognize who you became. Now you spend more time surviving memories than creating new ones. You think about the past constantly because at least the past still contained possibility. The future just feels empty now, and maybe that's why nights hurt so much, because when the world gets quiet enough, you can finally hear how lonely your life has become. No notifications, no messages, no one checking if you made it home safely, no one waiting for you, just silence, endless and endless silence. And after enough years, silence stops feeling peaceful. It starts feeling cruel, like proof. Proof that maybe you really are forgettable as your mind tells you. That thought destroys people internally, because humans are not meant to feel emotionally invisible for this long. We're supposed to be known by somebody, loved by somebody, held by somebody. But some people go years without experiencing any of those things genuinely, and eventually they stop believing they ever will. That's when the hopelessness becomes unbearable. When you stop imagining a happy future entirely, you don't picture marriage anymore, or love, or peace. You just picture yourself older and more tired, still carrying the same emptiness, still lying awake at night wondering why life never seemed to happen for you the way it happened to everyone else. And honestly, that fear can eat someone alive. The fear of spending your entire existence emotionally alone, of growing old without ever truly feeling chosen, of realizing all the love inside you never found a home. There are nights where the pain becomes so overwhelming you physically feel it in your chest, not metaphorically, actually physically, like grief wrapped in its hands around your ribs and decided to stay there permanently. You try distracting yourself, music, videos, games, sleep, but eventually everything ends and you're left alone with your thoughts again. And your thoughts are merciless now. They remind you of every failure, every rejection, every moment you felt unwanted, and every person who slowly stopped caring about you. Your brain becomes a museum of abandonment, and the worst part, you start believing you deserved it. You start wondering if there's something fundamentally wrong with you. Because how do you spend years feeling this unloved without blaming yourself eventually? That's the tragedy of prolonged loneliness. It turns pain inward. Instead of saying the world failed me, you start saying, I must not be worth loving. And once that belief settles into someone's heart deeply enough, it poisons everything. Compliments feel fake, affection feels temporary, hope feels dangerous. You stop trusting good things because losing them hurts so much. So now even happiness makes you anxious, because part of you is already preparing for it to disappear. There's no way to live, but it's how many broken people survive, by emotionally detaching before life can hurt them again. And maybe the darkest part of is how normal all of this starts feeling after enough time. You become so used to pain that the idea of peace feels unrealistic. You become so used to carrying sadness that you don't even know who you are without it anymore. You become your identity. The lonely one, the quiet one, the one nobody checks on, the one secretly falling apart behind closed doors. And every night before sleep finally takes over, your mind returns to the same terrifying thoughts. What if nobody ever truly loves me? What if life never changes? What if I already lost the best years of my life to sadness? Those questions echo through only people's minds more often than anyone realizes. Because deep down, they're grieving more than loneliness. They're grieving the possibility that maybe happiness was never meant for them at all. And that thought can make even the strongest person feel unbelievably small.